Torah TV. The world is thinking.
This idea that things are innate, that genes cause certain things, is so ingrained that we're kind of always, the people who don't want to look for the nuanced answers, as soon as they kind of come up with a question, will quickly say, well, that part must be innate. And what I've tried to do is follow the lead of all these scientists saying, well, maybe it is, but let's look and see if we can find some influences that we just didn't see before and actually explain this stuff. It's very funny because, several hundred years ago, if we were trying to explain this exact same thing, most of the people would say, well, God is doing that. This is coming from God, and that would be our explanation. And 100 years ago, after we discovered genes, the explanation would be, well, it's genes that are doing this. We're always looking for that explanation that satisfies our need to understand things. But what we're really doing in kind of inserting those very kind of simple-minded and short and easily digestible explanations is kind of running away from things that we just can't explain yet, and that we ought to just keep looking further to see if there are some nuances there. So this idea of tremendous persistence, can that be taught? That's obviously one big question that emerges, and that I address pretty extensively in the book. And you won't be surprised to hear me say that there's a lot of evidence that it can be taught. And I think I can back that up pretty explicitly, and I'm going to do a little bit of that right now. So the first part of trying to learn where persistence comes from is to look into the empowering reality of this kind of overall message. The idea that skills are actually acquired rather than innate. And the understanding that people who have that understanding feel empowered and will pursue without bounds these tremendous goals because they believe that it's process that takes them there rather than any kind of innate ability. I'm going to read another short section about a local hero of yours, Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck. She used to be at Columbia, but she's here now, and what she has brought to this discussion, which speaks to what I was just saying. One common characteristic in all successful adults is that at some point in their lives they come to realize how much the process of improvement is within their own control. That's also what Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck observed in a series of grade school studies in the 1990s. In her central experiment, Dweck, who was then at Columbia, asked 400 seventh graders to complete a relatively easy set of puzzles, and then randomly separated them into two groups. Individually, each student in the first group was complimented for his or her innate intelligence with the line, "You must be smart at this." Each student in the second group was praised for his or her effort. "You must have really worked hard." Then each child was offered a chance to take one of two follow-up tests, either another easy set of puzzles or a much harder set of puzzles that teachers promised would be a great learning experience. Here are the results. More than half the kids praised for their innate intelligence chose the easy follow-up puzzle. A staggering 90% of the kids praised for their hard work chose the more difficult puzzles. So people who understand that achieving success has to do with process and skill building are more ambitious and they do better. Simple as that. And there have been many, many studies to follow this up. This is not a fluke.